Happy 2 weeks of 2025. I can't believe we're here already. This is not a good setup because I can't find my mount for my phone. I had it in the car. I don't know what happened to it, but I just wanted to come to you from a little different perspective today. I just came back from dropping my daughter to work, and it is January 14th, sperm donor's birthday. Like, why do I remember that? It's been like 20, maybe 7 years since I've been with that man. Why do I remember that? Oh my God, or 26 years, something like that. It's like the things we remember, you know? Yeah, and he is the sperm donor because he does nothing else but provide the sperm for me to have my child. So he is, and will always be known on this channel as the sperm donor. Don't know where he is, don't know what he's doing, but, more power to him. I'm grateful for my daughter. She was a definite blessing in my life. Very grateful for that. Anything else? Yeah. Not at all. But anyway, just thought I'd drop in with a little mini chat. See how you're doing today on this second week of January 2025. I can't believe that we're here already. Can't believe it. I'm sitting out front of the apartment complex where I live, which, I see all these videos lately. I live in the projects. I do not live in public housing or in the projects, but I might as well be. I'm overpriced. I'm living in an overpriced project, let's say that. And these buildings have been here since 1982, the year I graduated high school, the year I turned 18. I was 17 when I graduated high school. So these buildings have been up probably for anywhere from 42 to 43 years now. 43 years. And have they done many improvements in them? Not at all. And I've been here for 10 years. 10 years. And moved here because of So yes, I moved here because of circumstances due to me losing my job at age 49. So that's where we're going to go with this chit chat. So at 49, I had been working for a management company here in Charlotte near the airport. They managed restaurants and things in airports. And I had worked for that company for 8 years. But the year before I got terminated, before my position was gone, they eliminated my position. My boss, the president of the company, passed away. And I had given in May, it was May, I graduated with my BA May 11th of 2013. And that was a Saturday. On May probably 13th, 14th, maybe May 15th of 2013, I gave my notice. And I gave a 2-day notice. I said, on Friday is my last day, period. She had downsized me. So I was a full-time 40-hour hourly employee. And she downsized me to 3 days a week. But she kept somebody else in the office who had started way after me and did not do any of the things I did. But I don't know, for some reason, I think because I graduated college and I had things going for me, I think there was a lot of jealousy going on there. And so she said, well, I only need you to work 3 days a week. And I'm like, okay, I'm full-time. You're cutting me down to 3 days a week. You know that I have my senior citizen mother that I take care of, and I have a small child at that time. And I think my daughter was in elementary school, probably in first or second grade, maybe in first grade. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So I did it. I abided by it. I worked the 3 days a week. And then on May 15th, I gave a 2-day notice. She wasn't in the office. So I wrote up a little resignation letter and I put it in her mailbox. And I'm like, okay, you know. So when she came back to the office and she got it, she's like, oh, you're leaving? I'm like, yeah, I can't work 3 days a week. You're not paying me. And I just got my degree. So it's time for me to go. And so anyway, and there was a lot of things going on there. You know, she would just do things to spite, I think, for me. She would invite the other coworker and her man out and some other people. They would always go out to dinner. She liked going to fancy places. So she would take us out like once a year on our birthday, which I hated that because her daughter's birthday was the day after mine, but she was 10 years younger than me. And she passed away probably maybe 2 to 3 years before her mother did. Yeah, it was freaky. So the whole, you know, taking us out to dinner, taking me out to lunch and stuff on our birthdays, or just to chit chat. And, you know, it was always a rush. She had to go where she wanted to go. It was always a rush. And I just didn't feel comfortable. And I didn't feel, you know, I didn't want to be with her. Like, I don't want to have lunch with you, dinner with you, or any of the above. But when she invited everybody to dinner, that was one of the last straws for me, because you invite the whole office. I'm your office manager, been here the longest in the main office. There were people who were there longer than me who worked in the airports, but I was there the longest in the office. And as your office manager, and you don't include me, but you do everything on a secret and include everybody else. And then, of course, I find out about it because they run their mouths like water. So she did that one time, and I came in and I said, I was on the phone with one of the people who she invited to this thing, and she overheard me. And I said, it must be nice. I wasn't invited. I wasn't included in that at all. I said, you think I would have been as being the office manager? But no, wasn't included. But everybody else was with their boyfriends or significant others. I guess maybe because I didn't have a significant other at the time, she figured, oh, she wouldn't invite me. But I could have taken my mother. I could have taken my daughter. If it was a grown-up thing, I could have just gone by myself. And that would have been fine. It was only for office people. So I think that was the last straw for me, and a lot of other little nitpicky BS things that went on there. So after the 8 years, when I gave my notice in May of 2013, and it came to Memorial Day weekend. And I had left, and Memorial Day weekend came along, and I get this frantic phone call from my coworker, and she says she's crying on the phone. I can't understand what she's saying, what is going on. Apparently, my boss died. And I'm like, what? So I guess her daughter had died 3 years before her of pulmonary embolism. And apparently she had the same thing. It was just freaky. And like I said, the daughter was 10 years younger than me. So this year she would have turned 50. And I guess she was, I've not been there working there for like 10 years now. I don't remember how old the daughter was. She was in her 30s, I believe, when she passed. And that she had, I think, 4 children or 3 children. I can't remember. No, she had 4 children. When I first started working there, she wasn't in the office, and there was a big hullabaloo, and I'm like, what's going on here? The day I started, one of her children had killed themselves. So that was a thing. And we had to deal with that every day with her crying in the office and all this kind of stuff. And then after that, her poor daughter passed. So that was something else we had to the tune of her giving me flowers and stuff that I would have to go and change them out at the mausoleum and whatnot. I'm like, what? Like, that was definitely not in my job description at all. So, it was stuff like that. But the other girl who worked in the office was like her pride and joy. And that girl talked about her like a dog, didn't do it. And she's also deceased now. So it's like, I'm so glad I left that company, because God knows what would have happened to me. You know what I mean? It's just freaky things that have happened to all of them. Not any kind of like murder thing, but just sicknesses and illnesses and things like that. And, but yeah, just absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. So I gave my notice. I got that phone call on Memorial Day weekend 2013 that she had passed. So Memorial Day, the office was closed. So I went in that day. I went in to help them, you know, with phone calls and things like that, if they needed help with anything. And the young lady who worked, we were the same age, who worked opposite me in the office, she brought in a lawyer friend and started doing some fast talking to my boss's son who was taking over. And for her, at the time, one of her sons, surviving sons, she had 2 surviving children, left 2 sons. And so she just finagled everything, finagled her a big-ass salary. She was probably making 6 figures for all I know. Brought in her lawyer partner who she used to work for, who also knew my boss, brought him in, and he was now a consultant and making all kinds of money. And he would come in there, and he's somebody who, I won't mention his name, but a lot of people know him, very well known, and he's been on a reality show and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, she brings him in, and they're chatting to my boss's son, you know, putting all kinds of stuff in his ears. So he asked me, I said, well, I can come back. What I left for didn't pan out, and I had nothing else to do. So I'm like, well, I can come back. It's not a problem since she had passed away. Hey, why not? I would come back because it would be under a different umbrella. But it was still the same bullshit. You know, he didn't really want to pay me. And he's like, well, you're part-time. I'm like, I'm still on the books of Stephen's still working here because they had never taken me out. I was only gone for a week. They had never taken me out of the system. So nothing changed as far as my status was concerned. And he's like, well, I guess you can work part-time. So I guess I worked from, I think, 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon were my new hours. They took away my keys to enter the building. They didn't give them back. I had turned them in when I left. The code that they used to get in for security was my code that everybody used because nobody can figure it out. They didn't disable that. So I was at their like beck and call. And it wasn't pleasant, but it was giving me a little bit of money. And I appreciated that until I was able to find something else, which fast forward, he said, well, we'll keep you on. And then later on, for about maybe 6 months after, he came to me and he said, you know what, I'm eliminating your position because we don't need you. We don't need that position anymore. And I'm like, you don't need an office manager, somebody to pay the monthly taxes for the restaurants and all of that kind of thing? That was not a position to be eliminated. And to do management training, which is what I did, and to also do all of the new employee hires and everything. You're still hiring employees for your restaurants. He's like, no, we don't need you anymore. I'm like, okay. He's like, so your last day will be June 14th, he told me, of, 2014. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. So I just, I worked it. I just did what I could do. I did the bare minimum. I did my job, and that was it. And that little one, who is now deceased, who was working in the office with me, she would always try to make it like she was special. And then her lawyer friend would always come in there and bring his little child. And so they would sit the child at my desk for me to babysit or feed or to take to the bathroom and do all that stuff. And I'm like, that's what I'm here for? To be a glorified babysitter? I have my own child, and she's in school. So no, I'm not a babysitter for anybody. And that kind of pissed me off. It was very condescending, very. And she's like, oh, he's going to get you a nice gift for Christmas, and he's going to do this, and yada, yada, yada. He didn't give me a damn thing. Did not give me a damn thing. Not even a thank you for feeding or taking care of his child every time he came to the office and brought her. And she was a cute little baby, cute little girl. She was, I think, 3 years old. She was a toddler. And I couldn't get any of my work done when she was there. And the questions, she was at the age of why, and asking all these questions. And I'm like, little girl. I didn't say that to her. I was like, little girl, I'm at my job working. And it would be different if I was a teacher or something like that. Yes, I had my degree for education, but it wasn't early childhood education. That's not what I went to school for. I went to school for adult education and training. And so that is not what I went to school for. I wanted to be a professor and teach adults like myself who had decided to go back to school at their, second act of their life. So many people who you couldn't go to school right out of high school, or you went and you dropped out. Like me, I went for a year to community college and then I dropped out. So I wanted to make an impact on women, especially like myself, who were in their 40s, who were raising families, working full time, and going back to school so they can better themselves. That's where my head was at, not babysitting a small child in an office where I was working. So I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand that job after that, but I said, I'm going to help out. So when June 14th came, 2014, I packed up my desk and said sayonara. I did cry with one of the people that I worked with. He was a nice guy. He was the general manager of the stores in the airport. And and he had a heart condition and everything. And I really felt for him because he had a heart attack. And they were calling him in the hospital like, well, when are you coming back to work? And I'm like, okay, this man just had a heart attack. So just awful company, awful people to work for, very awful. And that I worked there for 8 years, I was lied to anyway. I was referred by a friend of hers who was one of my best friends at the time, who we have no longer speak, but not because of that or anything. But I was referred to by her mother to work for this woman because she was hiring, she's got a conglomerate and she's going to give you the best benefits. She's going to make such good money. And I didn't. Everything I got from her, I had to beg for. And she's like, well, I'm giving you market value. And half the time, she wasn't giving me shit. I mean, I was not making any money with her, really. And she knew my status. She knew my situation, that I was a single mother with a senior citizen mother who was retired and a young child. So I needed every dime that I could get. And, wasn't nice. You figure I'm working for a Black-owned business, woman-owned business, and that, she would have been somebody excellent to work for, but she was not at all, was not. So when I was let go from that job, my daughter was in high school by that time. She was, I believe, getting ready to, she was a rising sophomore. So, she was going through driver's ed. I needed to have a card for her, and I did have my card at that time. And my mom was getting on and everything, and I'm like, God, I need to find a job, and I just couldn't find anything. And then we got our lease to re-sign at where we used to live before. We lived in this complex, and it was a beautiful complex about 2 minutes away from here. And the rent had gone up, I swear, maybe $300-400. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I lost my job. I don't have a job, so I can't pay this rent. My mother couldn't afford to pay that with her Social Security and me not having any other income coming in. So we had to bail. So we gave our notice that we were not going to sign the lease and packed up our place, and we went looking and looking and looking and looking and looking. Oh my God, it's terrible here in Charlotte, North Carolina. The rents are so high, and this was almost 11 years ago. So imagine till today. It's ridiculous today. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's nothing like New York or anything like that, but everything is relative, and it's just ridiculous. So we found this place after looking for so many places, and they had a special. So my mom was like, oh, okay. And it's a walk-up, which wasn't good for her, but it's all they had. And she's like, we have to move, so we're going to have to take it. And it was nice then. Of course, the apartment was all redone, but it has these press board old-ass cabinets that are horrible. And it's just not cute. It definitely doesn't have the aesthetic that I'm accustomed to living in. So fast forward to now, we've been here for 10 years, and it is like I'm living in a glorified projects. I swear. The rent we pay to me is ridiculous for what we get. We really have hardly any amenities. I have never had a rodent or a roach problem ever in my life until I moved here. And it wasn't the full time. We lived in here for about 9 years, maybe 8.5, 9 years before I started seeing little buggies. And actually, no, we've lived here for 10 years before I started seeing any kind of bugs or rodents. And my daughter and I were in our recliners one night doing our little exercises and everything, watching YouTube, and we see this black thing run by. And I'm like, what the hell is that? It was a mouse. Scared me to death. I didn't know what to do. I put my feet up on that recliner so high. I'm like, I will not be able to sleep in this apartment. I will not. I have never been in a place, in a house or an apartment anywhere with a rodent. Ever in my life. And that freaked me out. Come to find out, we didn't just have one. Oh, no. We had 3. Where they came from, I have no idea. And I'm thinking that they came through the fireplace, because they do have fireplaces here. I'm thinking that's where they came through. But I don't know. I mean, it's just the freakiest thing ever. And that's where our little kitten found us. I prayed on that. I prayed and prayed and prayed that we would get a cat. We had a cat back in 2018, and our cat died in January 2019. And we have not replaced the animal since. And he was the sweetest little orange tabby named Mango. And I'm like, my God, we need a cat. And I was speaking to someone in another state, and they're like, oh yeah, we can't live in this state without a cat. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, what are we going to do? We really, at the time, like right now, we can't afford a cat, but we need a cat. And that's when I said down in a few other episodes prior to this video that our little kitten, I heard her meowing so loud, and she ran up the steps and ran in here, and she's been here for 4 months. Yesterday was 4 months that she's been with us. And I believe when she came up those steps, she wasn't like a teeny hand kitten like Mango was when we first got him, but she was probably, she had to have been over a month old. She had to have been at least 6 weeks old, maybe, I'd say, or so. Maybe 6 weeks. She was older than a month, because when we got Mango, I think he was a month old. But this cat was older. She was a little bit bigger than that, but still very baby. She's still tiny right now. She's getting bigger, though. She's getting big. And we've had her for 4 months. So I'm assuming she's about 5.5 months old. And God answered my prayers. And that's how we knew we had 3 rodents, because it took her about 2 weeks getting acclimated and everything to her surroundings, her new surroundings, because she just invited herself in, the cutest little thing ever. And her name is Mam Mam, and Little Miss Mam, but we call her Mam Mam. And she answers to that too. She knows her name. Or we have a nickname for her. My daughter calls her Mamberly, and she answers to that too. So she caught a mouse, and I'm like, oh my God, she caught it, and she killed it, and I had to clean that up. I thought I was going to die. I thought my soul had left my body at that point. And but when I looked at the mouse, I'm like, that's not the mouse that my daughter and I saw. The mouse that we saw was black, and this was like a gray mouse, and the mouse we saw was black. I'm like, this is not the mouse. So I'm like, okay, maybe I was seeing things. I'm like, but that's not the same mouse. Come to find out, there was another mouse. Wasn't the same mouse that my daughter and I saw like a week later or a couple days later. Then a week later, The mouse that my daughter and I saw, she caught it. She didn't kill it, though. She caught it. My daughter trapped it in a cup and got rid of it. I'm like, yeah, you handle it. I'm like, because I'm not dealing with that. I have cleaned up 2 mice. I'm not doing it again. So, fast forward, after the whole rodent situation, then one of our little dear maintenance men, who I spoke about in a previous video, who's retired, and he had been working for, he said, in the maintenance business for 57 years. And I'm like, God bless him. And he was leaving, and I went to take my daughter to work one morning, and he saw us, and he pulled over to tell me that it was his last day. The next day was his last day. And I'm like, oh my God, I miss him. I do, because he's the only one in here to me that had any sense. So he was the one who told me that my neighbors who lived on if you're facing my door, my apartment, on the left of me, and if you're coming out of my apartment on the right of me, that they were evicted. And I noticed I hadn't seen all the cars and everything. I'm like, what happened to those people? He's like, oh yeah, they were evicted. Their apartment was roach infested. And I'm like, what? Which is why I was starting to see little bugs. And this happened, maybe he's mentioned this to me in either September or October, probably. I know it was it might have been, I think it was before we got the little kitten. So it had to have been like right before. So maybe the 1st of October or so, because it smelled so bad in their apartment. And he came up here one day and I said, what is that smell? And he says, oh, we had to evict them. The place is full of roaches crawling up the walls and the ceilings. He's like, I've never seen anything like it. He's like, and you've never had any? I said, no, I have not. And I'm not trying to have them now. So now we see them. And I had started seeing them. And so, yeah. So I'm like ready. This is my way. I'm praying that, you like my videos and comment and subscribe to my channel, because I am trying to be on the fast track to get this content creation going and have a little bit of extra change to come in for my daughter and I, so that we can get out of here. Do you hear me? Out of here. I would rather live in a project than live here. And I mean that. There's nothing wrong with the projects. Growing up, my family, my aunt and uncle, whose daughter became a dentist, they lived in the projects. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Back in the day, there was nothing wrong with that. I never thought there was anything wrong with that. And I still don't think there's anything wrong with it. Now, I don't think they're really called, I don't know if they're still called projects or not. I think they're called, now they're more like Section 8 maybe housing or something like that, which is probably what they were before, maybe, I don't know. But this place is worse than a project. Everybody's videos who I've watched, I live in the projects, their places are so nice. There's nothing aesthetic about this apartment at all. We live on the north-facing side, so we barely get any sunlight, so it's terrible for filming, which is why I'm always in my room or someplace else filming, because it's awful for filming. And it's our year to get out of here. So that's my little story time about losing my job and moving to the quote-unquote high-class projects here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Anyway, I hope you have the most fabulous day. Please give me a thumbs up, like my video. Please comment down below. Give me some encouragement here. And please, 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 it would mean so much to me if you subscribe. And my name is Alexis. Everybody calls me Lexi. And until next time, love you plenty.